Good evening, everybody. Well, tonight we're having technical problems with Chris Williamson's tech. So it's back to me. And I'm going to be talking tonight to hopefully Chris and Terry Deans, who got thrown out of Labour for wearing a T-shirt. So if you'd like to bring Terry in, please. Hi, Ter.
Hi, Lizzie. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Nice to see you.
We're talking about Chris. Chris won an award for his lifetime achievements in the Labour Party. You, on the other hand, only came to politics 4 years ago, 5 years ago?
Six.
Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it? Was it Jeremy Corbyn that got you in, or got you into it, or something else?
Well, it's Jeremy Corbyn that got me into the Labour Party, yes.
And but did you get into politics briefly before that? You just thought, or did you just think, well, I better stop shouting off about everything and just start getting involved?
Yeah, I think that I've always been political, Lizzie, since I was a teenager. Really, it's just that I never got involved in party politics. I've got involved in my own politics all through my life, and anybody who's within earshot of me would know that. So it's funny. I was actually thinking about getting involved in politics at the start of 2015, after all those years. Finally, and I thought to myself, well, I'm going to have to do something. I can't just go around like just talking to my own circles all the time, and decided I was going to get involved in it. And I was on the point of joining the Socialist Workers' Party in Plymouth in February 2015, and I decided against that. And I was going to look at other options, and then Mr. Corbyn came along.
Wow.
So later.
Yeah, and. You know, I mean, you've seen it the same as myself, same as most people who joined the Labour Party because of Jeremy Corbyn, you know, who hadn't been involved in politics particularly before. Like you say, once we realise that everything is political, absolutely every decision that we make, every thing that we suffer, everything that supports us by the state is all political. And it's at the whim and will of the political parties to take it away or support ordinary people. And we saw Jeremy Corbyn getting trashed, and we saw Chris Williamson getting trashed. We saw a lot of people go before that, but they weren't MPs for a start. And then we saw Chris Williamson get taken out with smears. And so let's jump forward to now. You've just been expelled from the Labour Party. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to add, actually, before I say that, I not only had I not been involved in politics, party politics before, until at the age of nearly 55. It was a month before my 55th birthday that I joined the Labour Party. I'd never actually voted in my life before. So it was a big turnaround for me, and I find it quite ironic that I'm an ex-Royal Navy Falklands War veteran, and I went to obviously at the age of 21, I went and sort of represented my country in a war at the other end of the world, but I've never actually voted for any of the individuals who would send me to those wars. So it's quite ironic that somebody who had done that had never actually voted for it before, you know. So fast forward, yeah, I mean, I've just recently been expelled. I just funny enough, I just come off a 12-month punitive suspension in September for things which I still can't get my head around. As you know, I don't know what's going on in the Labour Party as far as like common sense and things like that are concerned. But they put me on a punitive suspension, and then that just got lifted September. And then this T-shirt that I'm wearing, that you remember very well, Lizzie, because it's your fault, because you interviewed me at the Rialto. And some very clever person in the Labour Party saw me wearing this T-shirt and decided that they would use that in the allegations, citing that in the allegations to justify my expulsion. Yeah. You couldn't make it up, could you?
No. Well, so basically, if it wasn't for Chris, you wouldn't have got expelled.
Well, it was good old Chris. I mean, he can't do anything, can he? The poor bloke, you know.
No.
You know, anybody who's seen within, earshot of him, or that's the way it is. Yeah.
Well,
So,
they must watch Resist TV every week, mustn't they?
well, I was actually thinking, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine earlier, and I was actually, really chuffed with myself, because I thought, after all this time in my life, that little old me, from a backwater little village in Northern Ireland, like nobody's ever heard of, could be such a threat to the good old British Labour Party, with this history and everything. So, it's amazing, really. I'm quite sort of chuffed about that. I never thought I was that good.
Yeah, I think
maybe I never realised they were that bad.
Well, I think when they're taking out ordinary people who have some influence on social media. Do you think that's what it is? It's like my T-shirt, by the way.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Leaders suck.
Yeah.
Because in 2015, I got involved with representative voting, proportional representation, and my mate and I decided to stand as for MP, and we would have job shared the job if we got it, because we thought that there were so many MPs that weren't there to represent their communities. Most of them aren't there to represent their communities, are there? And we thought that we would do really well, and we didn't. So then Jeremy Corbyn came along, and I too was dragged into Labour because of him. And I met Chris in about 2016, I think it was, at Brighton. And I interviewed him. I was interviewing him all the time. And I had a friend called Gilad, who was a sax player for the for the blockheads, during the blockheads. And he, for some reason, he wasn't able to play somewhere. He was getting prescribed. He was getting prescribed. So I said to Chris, could you put an ad out? Could you retweet this tweet so that the venue accepts Gilad? And that was actually the first time Chris got in trouble. That was about 2017, I think. And that was the first time that Chris got in trouble, because it turns out that Gilad Atzmon is an Israeli who supports Palestinians. So of course that got him in real trouble. What else did they say that you were, because you're Labour in Exile Network, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, yes. They cited it was a T-shirt wearing thing, the Chris Williamson T-shirt, this one, plus the membership of the recently proscribed Labour in Exile Network. So that was it. So I was guilty on both of those fronts, clearly. Yeah. I mean, obviously I was wearing the T-shirt, So, and I am in the Labour in Exile Network because I'm in exile. I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, can we bring Christine in now, because she's got a similar story to Terry's. Hi, Christine.
Hello. Just unmuted myself. Yes.
Yeah.
I was expelled for wishing good luck to Chris Williamson on Facebook. A year before I was actually expelled. That was it. Just 2 words. Well, actually, what I said was, good luck from Thanet South. We have had our problems too. So whatever they interpreted that as was obviously so wicked, I was out.
Yeah. And had you, you're also part of Labour in Exile Network, aren't you?
Yes, us and all the other exiles.
What are you looking for?
That's what my background is, sorry.
Oh, right. That's all right. I thought you had a big sign behind you or something.
No, just a blank wall.
Oh, usually you're holding up a sign whenever I see you, aren't you? In exile.
I've got a heart.
Oh, well, that's lovely. So, what did Chris say? Did Chris speak to you after you got summarily expelled? Did he offer support?
Yes, he rang me up and was very friendly and very kind. I didn't want to go down any kind of legal route or take anyone's crowd-funded money because I didn't think I was worth it, really. Because I didn't mind being out. I was so fed up with the evil people I was encountering in various bits of the Labour Party bureaucracy that I wasn't at all surprised what had happened, and I didn't really want to take legal action because, to be honest, if individual cases are just not worth fighting, it's got to be a mass movement, really.
Yeah, a huge tort. Well, Terry, what about you? Did you think about legal action?
What for what they suspend the expulsion?
Yeah, for your T-shirt.
Never crossed my mind.
No.
No, I couldn't think. I mean, the Labour Party. By the way, Lizzie, look, I don't know much about legalities and I don't know much about politics. Okay, and I don't, and even less about the internal machinations of party politics. The Labour Party internal machinations just bemuse me, to be honest with you. So, but I have a funny feeling that they've got some kind of a, like private club type of a thing going on where they can do whatever they want within, as long as they're not breaking civil laws, I guess. But if they're not happy with me for wearing a T-shirt or being involved with a group that they're not happy with, what can I do?
Yeah.
I don't think unless somebody can tell me differently, I don't think there's any legal ramifications or any comeback from me. No one's advised me anyway.
When I was first out of Labour, I was very angry, and I was so angry. Not particularly for me. I was angry for me, but I was more angry for people like Chris, who had who'd been in the Labour Party his entire life. And he was on a building site, and he would go around getting subscriptions, and asking people to join up and doing so much work all of his life, and to be treated so terribly, and it's like the way they treat Jeremy Corbyn now. He's an elder statesman, and he was the leader of the Labour Party. He was the leader of Her Majesty's opposition, and yet he's treated like absolute dirt. And Chris Williamson is treated like dirt. I remember walking around Brighton with Chris in 2019, and people were spitting. And what's that all about? And they just believed all this lie and propaganda, and well, at this point, should we bring Ian in? I don't think we're going to get Chris back. He's tried to get on a couple of times. Hi, Ian.
Hi, Lizzie.
All right.
I'm fine,
Well,
thanks. Bill.
Yes, we're all fine. I'd like you to tell the audience a bit about what happened to you, please.
So I got expelled on the 25th of November. I was in auto-excluded, or that was the letter I received in August for being a sponsor of Labour Against the Witch Hunt, which I wasn't a sponsor. My name did appear under the list of sponsors, along with the likes of Noam Chomsky and Ken Loach and Alexei Sayle. But I don't think any of those were sponsors of it either. The Labour Against the Witch Hunt was set up in 2017, and it was on the back of our General Secretary at the time getting suspended. And if you can remember, at that time there was an election going on for the leadership of the Labour Party, and it was felt that a number of people that were likely to be supporters of Jeremy Corbyn were finding themselves for various reasons to receiving letters of suspension, so they couldn't take part in that leadership election. And that's basically why Labour Against the Witch Hunt was set up. It's never stood a candidate, and to my knowledge, it doesn't actually meet, and it probably hasn't met since about 2017 when. We were basically saying, that people who get suspended, they should be told the reasons why they were suspended. They should be entitled to a fair hearing. They should have due process, so they should have a fair timeline and the right to representation. And that's what Labour Against the Witch Hunt was set up for. I mean, I got asked on a picket line. Was in Watford. It was a McDonald's strike by Mark Wadsworth, who asked if our union would support the campaign, especially with what had happened to our General Secretary and the fact that he was, brought back into the party very, very quickly because he was a General Secretary. But yet a number of others, they'd still found themselves out on suspension without knowing for up to 18 months, 2 years. And that's why the campaign was set up. I mean, it had nothing to do with anti-Semitism whatsoever. But they basically had decided that whether or not I was a sponsor didn't matter. My name appeared on the website, and so because my name appeared on the website, then that was justification to expel me. Even though they know I've had no involvement with them since 2017. They decided that my name appearing on that website. Like I said to him, my name appears on Red Watch, but I'm not a supporter of that organisation either. My name appears on many websites. It doesn't mean I support them. I don't support the Daily Mail, but they have some stuff on there about me too. It's not an endorsement. I mean, but I mean, the whole situation is a mess. I mean, but my belief is that they wanted the scalp of a trade union supporting of the left, and the Bakers Union was a reasonable name that they could offer up to enable them to be able to say, look, we're dealing with whatever it is that they think they're dealing with, and we can push these out, and somehow that will make the Labour Party more electable.
Yeah, because they don't want the Labour Party to be associated with trade unions anymore.
No, exactly. I mean, and the problem that the Labour Party has, I mean, is whether they like it or not, is their association with us goes back to their very foundings. We actually balloted our members in 1902 to raise a levy. That levy was used to provide 100 organisers to actually build the Labour Party that Keir Starmer has inherited. Obviously, it's not the same Labour Party with the same aims and ambitions that we were hoping for in 1902. We see in 1902 our then General Secretary talking about a party that represents the laboured classes, a party that ends landlordism, a party that serves the interests of the communities, and the MPs are representatives of those classes and come from those classes. But we know the Labour Party isn't made up of workers anymore. It has no real connection. They fly people into these seats, to these safe seats that have no real connection with the community. And they're more interested, as they say, in representing business and the Labour Party being open for business rather than fighting for workers' rights and fighting for the interests of our communities.
Yeah. Well, and tell us about your experience at conference. Didn't they hold you this year in Brighton? Didn't they hold you in the outer hall until a vote was taken?
Yeah. So obviously we had to go and pick up our. I don't know if it was deliberate or not. I mean, it was just unfortunate that they called for a card vote, and we were queuing up. There was a few of us. We were queuing up and I actually had my card votes, and I was ready to put it in the box, and they wouldn't let me vote. But I mean, like I say, it wasn't just me. There was quite a number of people. It just happened to be for the General Secretary's election.
David Evans.
Yeah, it's meant to be for his election, and you know they needed to make sure they got that vote through in a way that he was able to secure his position. I mean, it was funny that was the only vote where there was no ballot boxes left out to be for people to take a ballot on. I mean, it was basically opened up and then it was shut.
Yeah.
They got the right votes in, so therefore they didn't want to hang about, I don't think.
Do you think there was cling film over the hole?
Probably, yeah. I mean, but it says everything you need to know about the current state of the Labour Party. You know, I mean, I was at the Chulo meeting where they disrespected the trade unions.
Yeah.
They deliberately divided the trade unions over some emergency motions that they wanted to push through, which they claim was about democratising the Labour Party. There was a consensus of opinion of the trade unions, but what Keir Starmer and David Evans did was terrible, because they rode a horse and carriage through that consensus, which has divided the trade unions on Chulo. Which will take a long time, I think, to repair. They may not come out openly and talk about it, but the fact is he seriously damaged them, and he seriously undermined those trade unions. And basically, you know, as long as he could secure a vote, he demonstrated his lack of concern, lack of interest in building a relationship with the trade union movement, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think that that's common across all of the trade unions now. They're all in some way disaffiliating or just withdrawing. As a Unite is withdrawing to its basic payment just to stay within the realms of Labour. So what can you see going forward? You know, Terry, I know, is going to stand as an independent in the May elections. I believe it's the May elections. Christine is fighting to be returned to the Labour Party. What do you think that you'll do?
I mean, you know, obviously we disaffiliated. You know, we're no longer part of the Labour Party. We will support where we couldn't previously do. We have people that don't stand on behalf of the Labour Party, that do stand for other political organisations who we've never been able to provide any funding for. Not that we're rich, but obviously, you know, we did provide money for people who are standing to become Labour councillors or Labour MPs. Well, we will now do that for people who stand, you know, who are members who are standing for council seats or to become MPs. I mean, we will not be tied with supporting just the Labour Party. We won't. Yeah. We certainly won't be campaigning for the Labour Party. We certainly won't be supporting a Keir Starmer-led Labour Party. We will support, you know, certain socialist MPs, you know, like John McDonnell, you know, Richard Burgon, Ian Mearns, Ian Lavery, and those types of MPs. But we won't be campaigning to get people like Ben. What's he called? I always forget him, get mixed up with that Tory.
Yeah.
I can't tell the difference. You know, we certainly won't be out for Wes Streeting. We certainly, you know, won't be out for Lisa Nandy. You know, we won't be supporting any of those types of candidates at all, because, you know, they are not serving the interests of our members, and they're not serving the interests of the communities that they're supposed to represent. You know, and they demonstrated that by denying our opportunity to have a Labour government, by working, you know, to undermine firstly Jeremy Corbyn in 2016, and then making sure that we didn't win that election in 2017, and the way that they acted between 2017 and 2019, with the deliberate, you know, fire setting of people like Chris, and you know, it wasn't just Chris, was it? I mean, there was quite a number of people that were demonised, not because they're racist, but because they believe that Palestinians, you know, should be able to go to bed at night and wake up in the morning without the fear of being bombed. You know, I think we're all entitled to a right to life, and then anybody who doesn't understand that, you know, I'm just disappointed for them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think also, you know, Chris's Democracy Roadshow and his investigation into certain nefarious businesses operating around Whitehall. You know, I remember the video came out of him knocking on a door and the guy opening the door and then slamming it in Chris's face because he was scared of the fact that Chris was investigating them. And I think it was within a few days that the torrent of attacks came on Chris. So I think, you know, it's anti-establishment. Anybody who does anything to rock the establishment's boat, whether it's their political and monetary interest in aligning with Israel, or whether it's secret money, secret money from wherever, or it is just anyone that is speaking out. Because ordinary people like Terry, tell us, Terry, if you could unmute yourself, please. Terry, what did you think about Ian? You know, you were saying that you didn't want to stand for the TUSC, which is the Trade Union and Socialist Coalition, and that is quite union based. So what will you do with no support whatsoever?
Well, I haven't got any support whatsoever, which is nice. But on the subject of TUSC, you know, Thatcher dragging Labour in Exile into this too much, but Labour in Exile are coordinating things called shadow CLPs, and in Plymouth we've been doing the same thing long before Labour in Exile ever existed. I did that as soon as I came into the Labour Party in Plymouth, when I realised straight away that the people who ran the show weren't interested in new members and democracy and things like that. So I started making strides right from day one, really, from the very first ever Labour Party meeting I went to coordinate groups of people, like-minded people who would support each other and get involved in local activism and campaigns. So those people still exist in Plymouth, and amongst those people, we've extended out to members of TUSC, and there's various guises of Socialist Workers' Party, Socialist Party, individuals. And just recently, we've had a meeting to discuss a strategy that we're going to use going forward in Plymouth in regards to the local elections. And those people aren't supportive of me, and have agreed that they would, if I was to stand in a ward in Plymouth, that not only would they support me, but they would actually withdraw their candidate from that ward in order to support me. So
yeah, because you're signing a no cuts. And
they know me, because over the years, despite the fact that the Labour Party have put incredible pressure on people like me to try and bully and intimidate us from associating with those types of people, you know, I've ignored all that and basically just fomented good relationships with them, and not just them, like people, just members of the community and people from different trade unions, GMB, local Unite people, etc., etc.
People who don't vote. That was what I was hoping to get round to, was the people who don't vote. How many people in Plymouth don't vote? Do you know offhand?
Oh yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know the numbers exactly. I could tell you the numbers in the ward that I'm in. I mean, the ward that I'm in at the moment, because I know most of them, because I've been campaigning relentlessly since the day I got into the Labour Party. So one of the good things that I've learned is I've learned a lot of stuff about the demographic and about canvassing techniques and the strengths and weaknesses of the Labour Party. And I haven't found many strengths, to be perfectly honest with you, but I've learned an awful lot about the demographics. And one of the demographics in the ward that I would be looking to stand in has got something like a 29-30% turnout, which converts into a ward of about 6,500 people, converts into something like 1,300 of them vote, something like that. 12, you know, it's an incredibly low number of people. So it's somewhere in circa 70% of the ward, and that's pretty consistent throughout Plymouth. So is that what you're angling up for me to talk about?
Yes, because you know, it's not only we're just in a little bubble, really, us people who've been expelled from Labour and who are left leaning, shall we call it that, who are after a better life for everybody, regardless of who they are. Everybody deserves a decent standard of life, especially in the 6th richest country in the world. And all these people who don't realise, I mean, like you never voted before 2015, was it, or 2017 even?
2017 was the first time I voted, 56 years old.
And did you think that labelling yourself as standing for TUSC would somehow alienate you from all those voters that don't vote, or prospective voters?
Look, I haven't ruled myself out of it. Okay, I think that I'm on a journey, Lizzie. Okay, and I'm learning a lot of things, and so I'm not sort of ruling myself in or out of anything at the moment. It's one of the things, but from someone who's kind of been a non-voter and very, very skeptical and cynical of party politics, it's difficult for me to see past things like I understand people have explained about the TUSC and it's not the same as a political party, and I totally get all that. But I look at it from the point of view of somebody in the doorstep who doesn't know these things. They don't know the nuances of all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And what they see is they see a candidate with a label against their name, and that label denotes a political party. And as much as you can stand it till you're blue in the face telling them about it, they'll still see you as you're under some sort of label or branding, or you're under some sort of jurisdiction or duty bound to do something or other. So I want to give it a go from myself, from the experience I've had over the years with the Labour Party, and what I've actually done as a campaigner for the Labour Party. I want to try and see if I can do that from a more independent and not associated at this moment in time with any political party, because that's where I come from, Lizzie. That's what I'm familiar with, for want of a better expression. So I want to give that a try and see. But I'm not saying I'm not going to rule it out, because I know some very good people that are TUSC candidates and supporters of them. So I want to keep a good relationship with those people.
Yeah, well, and it's a balance of financial and peer support, isn't it? You know, that you get from being a part of a coalition such as TUSC, but also when you go onto the doorstep, it's almost as if all people who don't vote, who don't understand or don't care about politics, they will see you as a politician rather than matey Terry from down the road who's going to make our lives better. So it's balancing between the two, isn't it?
Yeah,
Let's ask Christine. Christine, so you have been active in Thanet for a long time, haven't you? In media and politics. You did a newsletter. You had Farage there, didn't you? Tell us a bit about that. You're muted.
Sorry, I thought I'd unmuted. That was certainly the most powerful political thing that happened down here. Apart from the war, there were a lot of people came together to oppose the Iraq war, and those people stayed as a kind of network. So when it came to fighting UKIP, there was already a group of people who, you know, were prepared to come out and do some street fighting, basically. Yeah. And that's what we had to do. We had to turn up outside every UKIP meeting and make our presence felt. I don't really mean street fighting. The fascists who turned up to defend Farage were the ones into that. We did things like organise a continental breakfast for UKIP. They were having a big meeting in the UKIP office in Ramsgate. I'm from Thanet in East Kent. And there was a big UKIP meeting. They'd invited people from all over Kent. So we had a load of stalls opposite and offered them croissants and French cakes and things like that. And it puzzled everybody. And it was fantastic, because they'd come over and take a cake and you'd talk to them and you'd say, look, here's Ramsgate. It was regenerated with European funding. Look at that blue notice over there. That building wouldn't exist except for for the European Union, and you'd engage them in conversation, and then they'd come back for more cake. And so we did weird stuff like that. And Farage wasn't elected, so that was a very strong message to a very disparate group of people to come together for a political action that was actually successful. We did manage to get the most right-wing Tory MP, who was actually ex-UKIP, but at least it wasn't Nigel Farage. And then those people that were part of the Stand Up to UKIP movement in 2015 suddenly found that Jeremy Corbyn had become the leader of the Labour Party. So that was another thing that we could migrate into and take our activism. And I think we were different from quite a lot of other areas because we set up a local momentum group. But I think we hadn't come out of the Labour Party. We'd come out of opposing a Labour Party war, the majority of the people in the movement. And we were very, because we'd been opposing fascism, we'd thought through what we thought politically, and it was socialism. So a load of socialists went into Momentum and then migrated into the Labour Party from there, and supported Jeremy Corbyn and went on supporting him.
Well, so what do you think that we can do now? Because we've got 4 months, three and a bit months. Sorry, is that 5 months? Apologise, I was thinking March, not May. Till the local elections. So I think some areas have got local elections and others haven't. I don't really understand it, and I know a huge amount of people in the country don't understand it. They don't understand what the parish council is, the district council, the county council, and an MP. They've got no idea who's got jurisdiction over what, who does what. And if you wanted to stand as a councillor, you still wouldn't have much of a clue unless you taught yourself about it, because nobody ever sees their parish council or district council or county council in operation.
They do round here, actually, Lizzie, because in a small area like I live in Broadstairs, you know who your local councillors are. You meet them in the high street, you stop them and you say, look, my street light's out, do something about it. The lift's broken on the seafront, do something about it. Or you stand outside it with a placard and a few other disabled people saying, look, do something about this. The local paper takes it up. So in a small area, you get a chance to influence your council and your town council or your parish council much more. And I think if every area behaved as if that they could actually do something, that they could get out on the streets and contact the people that have been elected to actually do something about the problems of their area, then more stuff would be done. I mean, local politics in this area is in a bit of a state, though, because the Labour Party has just chucked out yet another Labour councillor without giving a good reason for it. And she's also a prominent health service campaigner. And the local Labour Party, Thanet South Labour Party, has taken the ability away from Labour Party members to put campaign issues onto their Facebook page. So, it's all kind of nuts. But the thing to do is to get out on the streets and shout about it.
Yeah, that's right, because people won't know. Like Terry already said, 70% of people generally, or 60% at least, don't vote. So we have to reach those people, don't we? And a lot of them are activists, and they are already campaigning, just not politically. And there is no political help, is there? Because Labour is gone now. The Tories were never there. The Lib Dems are only there if you can advance their agenda. The Greens they're not politically minded, are they? So we're left with no political avenue, but we need people to get involved with politics. So how do we do that? Ian, can you unmute yourself? What do you think we can do going forward? The unions don't seem to have a huge voice. Everybody who goes to work think if they're a member of their union at work, it's so that they can get support if they have problems at work. They don't think of it as a political arm of anything, do they?
No, I mean, which is a huge change, from how unions used to be viewed. I mean, if you look back at the history of trade unionism, it was about building political power in the communities, and the aim of changing the system. That's what the trade unions created the Labour Party to do, and quite clearly the Labour Party has failed in that. I mean, what's really interesting is when you look at the reasons why we created the Labour Party. I mean, for example, the King was feeding 500,000 people in London at Christmas in 1902 because the people were too poor to be able to put food on the table. I mean, the only thing that's changed, instead of being a king, it's now a footballer that's feeding our school children, and we're reliant on food banks. People are still too poorly paid. We still don't have decent homes. And in many cases, it's because we've fallen for this idea that Westminster is the only place that change can happen. We believe that change only occurs when a politician and a political party gets elected, and those changes are made. Well, yes, changes are made, but they aren't made in our interest because they feel that they want to be charitable towards us. There's a reason why they make change, and it's normally because there's some corporate taking them out for lunch, or offering to take them on a nice holiday somewhere in a warm climate when the weather's cold here, or maybe tarmacking the drive if it's a council. The reality is that when real change has happened for us, it's because we forced it. I mean, people talk about the Attlee government, and the Attlee government is probably the only socialist government we've actually really ever had. But when we talk about the NHS, I mean, the NHS actually came from a creation of the miners in Tredegan. I mean, you look at the actual setup of the National Health Service. If it had gone through to full completion, it would have been a mirror image of what the miners did in Tredegan. But obviously it got stopped, unfortunately. And then obviously when we lost the election in 1951, the Tories got in, and things never really saw their full implementation. Otherwise, the NHS would be probably in a much more secure position than it is now, as we see with the privatisation that's there, and taking a grip, and putting all of our health at risk. I mean, from our perspective as a trade union, what we're intending to do now is to link up in the community, is to identify community activists, is to build community power, is to launch a campaign called People Powered Communities. It's to offer support and advice to people in the community on 0 hours contracts, for example. So if they don't know their rights, if they're in debt, if people are in debt, we're going to provide a service that will be able to help them manage that debt or get out of that debt, and how to live, a more comfortable existence, to campaign and learn to campaign around issues like right to food, to have the right to food enshrined into legislation, so people aren't having to rely on the charity and goodwill of others when they should be able to live a decent life themselves. We don't want to see people having to queue up at food banks and suffer the indignity of taking some piece of paper because somebody's decided that they're entitled to go to a food bank. I mean, we're gonna help train the communities in various aspects about how they can stand up for each other, how we can build real change in those communities. And we're not daft. We know it's going to be little pockets here and there, but they're going to be important pockets, because if we demonstrate, in the way that we have done, I mean, like we did when we campaigned around £10 an hour, for example, the abolition of 0 hours contracts, the abolition of youth rates. I mean, in 2014, I mean, we were called extremists for wanting to make those a political campaign. But yet by 2017, most political parties had them enshrined in their document for people to vote on. I mean, so, you know, things can change if we come together, and it's the solidarity that we need to remind people is our strength, and it always has been. And when we stand together, then we will always win, you know,
Yeah.
and our history shows us that. It's just that we keep forgetting.
Yeah. So do you think, well, thank you. That was a fine speech there, Ian. Thank you very much for that. To bring it back to Chris and his lifetime achievement, that was built within Labour, I know, but it started out as union activism on the building site, didn't it? And I know I can't speak for Chris, and unfortunately, I figure the audience already knows. If you've joined us after the beginning of the show, I'm afraid we lost Chris. His technical difficulties just overcame him, but now he's outside of Labour, and the resistance movement has decided to become a political party. Well, fair enough for them. That's the way the members voted. So that's what should happen. But it's very difficult to see how we can get things moving quick enough for the May local elections in an organised way, in a solidarity way, you know, without using all of our tools, which is the unions, which is Extinction Rebellion, which is Thanet against Farage, which is Labour in Exile Network, which is, you know, all these disparate groups. Really, we really need to push together, don't we? I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, we've got to recognise that we have more in common than we realise, and that it's our unity that is our strength. I mean, you know, those are the keys to building an ability to have the right to a political voice. I mean, and we are entitled to one. You know, working class people have the right to a political voice, but obviously, you know, with everything that's stacked against us, you know, it's going to take people on the ground. It's going to take commitment. It's going to take explaining. It's going to take, you know, meeting people and explaining to them the difference that we can make together, you know, and what's ranged against us. You know, the radios, they own the radios, they own the TV stations, the newspapers. We've got all of those ranged against us. But one of the things that I would say is in 2017, obviously social media came along and changed that election and also changed our ability to communicate to people.
Yeah.
And whether you're for or against momentum, what momentum actually showed us is getting feet on the ground, getting boots on the ground, really made a difference in elections. The problem that Labour had in North Shropshire is there was nobody out there campaigning for it. They've won 1 of 6 by-elections because they can't get people out to support them. And there's a reason for that, because nobody has faith and confidence that this is a party that wants to make a difference to people's lives. I think if you have the right message and you explain to people, you know, the difference that we can make and what we should be, you know, having as a right, then I think people buy into that. I think people buy into an idea of a future where their children, you know, will be entitled to a decent home, entitled to a contract of employment, entitled to be able to go down the shop and pay because they've earned the wages and they've earned enough that they're not going to have to go into dip into a credit card and not be able to afford all the different things that they should have as a right, as we used to have, you know. But it just takes explaining to people about how and why we need to stand together to achieve it.
Yeah. And do you think that the unions usually operate within a workplace in wherever they are in the country? So do you have a BFAWU? Do you have a group in Plymouth, for example, in Thanet? Do you list all those places on your website? And can people who aren't in that particular business join your union, or do they have to join a different union?
I mean, we would always say to people, obviously, if there's a trade union in your workplace, you join them. If there's not a trade union in your workplace, then anybody's, you know, as long as you eat food or drink is the two main requirements. Eating food and drinking, you know, then obviously you're more than welcome to join the Bakers Food and Allied Workers Union. We have branches across the country, and I'm not sure about Plymouth. I mean, I know we did have. I mean, there was a British Bakeries there, but I think it got shut down. So I'm not sure we've got something in Plymouth at the moment. I think the closest would be over a bit further away in the likes of Bristol and Weston-super-Mare and around that area, off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But I mean, we organise. I mean, we are trying to put together and improve our website information. I mean, we've just upgraded our website, and we intend to have different pages for the different employers that we represent in those workplaces, so people would be able to identify whether or not there's one of those workplaces in their area.
Yeah. Because, you know, the thing is that for a long time, members of the unions have always said, well, our subs are paid towards the Labour Party, who do absolutely nothing for us. So why should we pay our subs? But so really, you've got to say to people, yeah, you pay your subs so that the union can represent you against your employers if you've got an issue with your employer. But also, if you do invite people who aren't with that particular employer into your union, then those subs are warranted then to be spent on such things as community, you know, not just in your workplace, but in your community where you live.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have a political fund, which obviously we used to use to contribute to Labour, which we're not going to be contributing to Labour. We'll still have a political fund, and we will still continue to be political, because that's obviously one of the things that you have to have if you want to run campaigns. I mean, currently we have a campaign for £15 an hour. I mean, that's a political campaign. You know, we run a campaign to abolish 0 hours contracts. You know, we support the renationalisation of the NHS. I mean, who wouldn't? You know, who wouldn't support the renationalisation of our energy, especially when in April we see. I mean, this will be some campaigning stuff. I think anybody standing in an election, who wouldn't want to see the renationalisation of our energy? You know, when those prices go through the roof. I mean, they're already doubling for people.
Yeah.
I mean, but by April, you know, they're expected to increase again. And that's going to be hitting hard-pressed families at a time when, you know, all prices are starting to rocket, you know, and campaigning against those price increases and showing people how we can make their lives better. I think our key ingredients for bringing people into politics, understanding why the system doesn't work for them any longer and how we can change their lives, but they have to take a leap of faith, you know. I don't know if you've gone off, Lizzie. I can't hear anything.
Everyone's frozen.
Have they? Apart from us.
Except me, I've got a big blanket.
One of us is going to have to take over the show, Ian.
What can I say?
Can I interview you?
Go ahead, mate.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Ian.
Right, well, find words from you, Christine.
Sorry,
would you like
we all froze for a bit? Yes, please.
Anything at the end, just about what people should do and can do to work independently. Have you muted yourself?
No, I haven't. I was just trying to hear. You've gone a bit kind of intermittent. What I was going to say was that the way to get people involved in politics...
Oh, hello, Christine.
You're on. Did you want me to say something? I've unmuted.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Terry.
Christine hasn't spoken yet, Lizzie. we're not hearing you. You're coming in and out.
Yeah.
Are you back with us?
Lizzie. This is such fun, isn't it, Zoom?
Yeah, one of us is going to start talking and then Lizzie's going to come in again, isn't she?
Christine, if you'd like to just carry on with what you were saying, and we'll finish after that and see if it's okay.
This is the voice of God, is it?
Yeah.
What I was going to say was that the way to get people involved in politics and give them faith in politics again is to look at the little local campaigns and get them to extrapolate from those to what they think should be happening nationally. But we had a campaign, we've got an ongoing campaign about Southern Water, who've been trying to kill us in various ways by polluting our rivers, putting sewage into our seas. On the Kent coast, they were closing the beaches for weeks and weeks in the summer, in the tourist areas, disastrous. And people came together from all sorts of political backgrounds to complain about what Southern Water was doing, and that there were 3 huge demonstrations in 3 of our coastal towns, and there will be more, and there would be more, except that the weather has changed and Southern Water is now under the cosh of some sort. So, but people extrapolated from that the water companies should be nationalised, that water should be a resource that's available to everybody, free and clean and reliable. That's one of the Oxfam campaigns, isn't it? That you try and get it in the developing world. Well, if you can't get it here, God help us. This is a basis of public health, really. So it does draw people into politics. So, find out what people are getting upset about, join their campaigns and talk to them about how national politics or the political principles come out of the local actions, get them to move their thinking outwards from their own personal problems and the problems of their area into national problems and how they can be solved on a national basis. That's my thinking.
Are we back, Lizzie?
Well, I don't know. Am I? Am I back, everybody?
You're
Yes.
back.
I hadn't even realised I'd gone anywhere because I could still see me and hear me. That's quite disconcerting when that happens. So, Terry, last couple of words. We've got 2 minutes left. So, last words. What can we do to invigorate people to become political and get out there in May and get some independent councillors and MPs into this political forum?
Oh, not much there then, Lizzie. Look, there's Ian and Christina have just sort of said it all, really. Ian came out with a great expression a moment ago, like, who wouldn't vote for it? Who wouldn't want to see the electricity, the utilities companies? Who wouldn't? Well, that's $1 million question, isn't it? We're obviously in this situation that we're in now for a reason, which meant that at some point in time something went wrong to make this thing happen in the first place. So we got to reverse that in some way. So my party thing is, by the way, I think this is going to take time for me. This May election, I think the May elections are the May elections, and we'll do what we can. But for me, from where I'm coming from, it's a case of like trying to build up a relationship with the local communities, and rebuild trust in them and communicate with them. So my philosophy here is to get out and contact and communicate with people, because all those great things that Christine and Ian are talking about, I think will only happen. Ian again, I'm sorry to paraphrase everything you're saying here, Ian, but he talked about solidarity, right? And I think that solidarity in the streets with the people, not just in political movements, but with your communities, with the people that you speak to, include them. Exemplify solidarity with them, make them feel included, let them feel the benefits and the force and the power of what solidarity can do, and build those relationships, because I think that this country has been divided and conquered for such a long time now that people are very skeptical, they're very cynical of things like politics. So I think that my mission in life at the minute, Lizzie, as a lifelong non-voter is to try and communicate with people and give them the opportunity to get involved in changing the things that Ian and Christine have so eloquently expressed. So
Thank
that's
you
it.
very much, Terry.
Thank you.
Well, I'm afraid we've run out of time. Thank you so much, Ian, Christine, and Terry, for joining us. And I'm really sorry. We tried to get Chris back at the last moment there, but I don't think is he able to come back in, Gaz? Yay!
Comrades, yeah, sorry about that. Somebody's having a laugh with my internet connection, I think. But anyway, so
for the last moment, we're overrunning by a minute, but I'm sure everybody would just love to congratulate you on your award for a lifetime achievement, and thank you really for everything that you've done to bring us all together with your Democracy Roadshow, which changed people's lives. You know, we think of Jeremy Corbyn changing our lives by being there and speaking, but you, when you knocked on the door of that secret building, and the guy opened the door and then shut it in your face, and you said, "I'm not going to go away. I'm still going to investigate you." And dark money people and, like overseas funding for things. It was just so magical. And I think that's what terrified the establishment and why they were so persistent in trying to get you out. But we'd all, I'm sure every single one of us who knows you want to say thank you.
Well, thanks very much for that, Lizzie. I really appreciate it. I don't know if you can hear me okay. And apologies that we had technical problems yet again this evening. Always seems to be a difficulty whenever I'm hosting Resistance TV, and it's just when we go live, because it seemed to be working okay prior to us going live. But anyway, we'll have to look at that and see how we can deal with that in the future. But no, thanks for that. We were taking on a lot of vested interests. I think that was the problem, Lizzie, and they were clearly determined not to just shut down Jeremy, but to shut down any of his supporters or any prospect that we might get a modest socialist program and an anti-imperialist foreign policy agenda. I think that's the thing that really scared the living daylights out of them. The military-industrial complex in particular were not keen to see their profit stream interfered with. And that door that you mentioned, that was the door to the Integrity Initiative, which was is a so-called charity that is publicly funded and received over just received 18 over the previous 18 months when I knocked on their door, around £2.5 million from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and from the Ministry of Defence. And much of that money had been used to smear the Labour Party and to smear Jeremy Corbyn, and that was a matter of record. And we wanted to ask some questions about that, but we didn't get very far. And shortly after that, I was suspended. I'm not sure the two things are connected, but some people say they are, but I'm not necessarily saying that. But that's what happened. Anyway, I'm on my phone now, by the way. If you're wondering why the background's different, I've actually transferred to my phone. Seems to be.
You're not having a cuppa, are you?
No, I'm not doing that.
No. Enjoying yourself.
No, I was trying to listen to you on the YouTube, and I'm really sorry I've not been able to participate in this, and because I was particularly keen to hear, from Terry and from Christine, and obviously from Ian, who's been on the program previously. So. Profuse apologies, comrades, but thanks for coming on, and thanks for what you've said, and thanks for what you're doing. It's really important that we continue to work together and stand in solidarity. And I was, particularly keen to be on this program because, Terry was expelled for wearing a Resist T-shirt, and Christine for having the temerity to wish me good luck. There it is. That's the T-shirt that got him expelled. I mean, it's an absolute ridiculous state of affairs. And obviously, Ian are doing a brilliant job with the Bakers Union and, leading the charge. And, their members decided that they'd had enough of the Labour Party. And but they got form, of course, because I don't know if you, because I wasn't able to hear all of the programme. And I don't know whether you mentioned, Ian, the fact that, Ronnie Draper, former General Secretary, when Jeremy was the leader and when the coup had occurred and we were going into the second leadership election, was actually suspended. One of the thousands that was suspended at that time, if you remember, to try and influence the outcome of the vote. Of course, they didn't succeed. And, you know, if the members had been put in the driving seat, comrades, we wouldn't be in this situation. And even Ed Miliband made that point back in 2015. He said if we'd listened to the members a bit more when we were in government, we wouldn't have made as many mistakes. And I mean, I've made that point on a number of occasions, quoting Miliband, because we wouldn't have gone to war in Iraq. We wouldn't have started privatising the National Health Service. We wouldn't have introduced tuition fees. We wouldn't have cut benefits for some of the poorest people in the country, and many of the other, you know, dreadful decisions that were taken under the Tony Blair and Gordon Brown premiership. So anyway, I'm waffling on now, comrades, and we're over time. But thanks again, and happy Christmas to everybody, and all the best for 2022.
Merry Christmas. If everybody wants to unmute and say Merry Christmas to the audience.
Same to you, Chris. Thanks very much.
Merry Christmas.
Solidarity, comrade.
Happy
Merry
New
Christmas.
Year.
Happy Christmas.
Thanks,
Good luck,
Christine.
Chris.
Thanks a lot,
Thank you
comrades.
very much, and thank you very much for watching, everybody.
Thank you.